Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you very much for joining as we're about to discuss a very important topical matter. And this morning, we are going to talk about some of the problems, the intractable problems that bedevil the island of Jamaica. Now, Jamaicans have this tendency not to be able to articulate clearly the problems that are happening there. And even if they try to attempt these problems, try to discuss them, it tends to me that we are so caught up with self-pride, right? This haughtiness of, attacking the Jamaican ego that we're not willing to look carefully and frankly at the problem, right? We do not want to kick the can down the road, right? We are not so much desirous of really confronting the real issues, the real problems that continue to afflict us. But this morning, we are going to look at the top 10 problems that afflict modern Jamaica. Now, these are just top 10, and these are my own analysis, my own assessment of what is happening on that island. Having gathered information, having read, and also as, if you will, a cultural expert, someone who has been trained in languages and cultures, I should say, and who understands very well how a culture functions, how it operates. And I'm just trying to look at it from both an insider as well as an outsider perspective, an expert knowledge, an expert understanding of the Jamaican culture. Now, the first assessment that I would like to make, the top problem number one that Jamaica has, right? It's not Jamaica no problem man, right? Because that should not have ever even been a theme that the tourist board has, um, you know, has dispensed, has disseminated about us, right? We need something much more nuanced that captivates the essence of who we are. But this thing about Jamaica no problem man is nonsense, right? It's absolute nonsense. And it's time that we get rid of that sort of um, motto, whatever you want to call it. But let's go now to the number one. We have lack of a clearly defined national identity and nationhood. I think that we have not clearly defined who we are as a people. What does it mean to be Jamaican? That's a very important question we have to ask ourselves. What does it really mean? Do we live in one Jamaica, or are there many states in that one state? And when I talk about many states, I'm specifically referring to particularly the ghetto, what we call these communities there in Kingston, right? Yeah, the word has just eluded me. I'm not sure why that word has just, and it's right on the tip of my tongue. I'm not remembering it. But yes, all of those, ghetto communities, garrisons, that's the word, the garrisons that we have there, we've got to find ourselves, coming to an awareness of how these garrisons are actually many states within that one state. And remember now in 2010, that was the issue that we were confronted with in terms of with the Christopher Dust case, right? And you were wondering if Tivoli Gardens was a separate state in and of itself. And it is, because we have learned subsequently that, when I say subsequent, I mean subsequent to the Tivoli Gardens incursion, that it was actually Christopher Dust Coke, that gave Bruce Golding the permission to become the member of parliament for that region, right? Without his permission, Bruce Golding could not have been the member of parliament of that constituency, right? Of that political constituency, something that we need to understand. Now, when you have a government that has to seek permission right? Approval from a known thug. It means, therefore, that that is a state within a state, right? It's a state within a state. It's something that we have to confront, right? And we sometimes do not like to confront a reality. It's a reality. And we have to decide whether we are going to live, whether we are going to contend with those mini states within that state, because if we do not eradicate them, those many states that are contending with the state, then we will never be developed, all right? Because we are lagging behind. That is what we have to understand. Number two, I talk about nationhood too, and that has to be, it's a big word, and we've got to define it in subsequent videos. Number two, lack of an agreed upon national language. What language do we want to speak? We are currently facing a chronic language crisis in Jamaica. This crisis has been compounded by our popular culture, particularly our music culture, right? And which, seeks or tends to glorify ignorance and illiteracy, all right? And whether we like it or not, our young people look up, not to our politicians anymore, not to our teachers anymore, not to preachers, not to lawyers. Their real role models are these cultural, what should I say now? Symbols of what the music industry is all about, right? So they are the music icons, right? They look up to these people, the people like the Beanie Mans and the Shabba Ranks and all of the others that are there, right? These are their role models, right? Now, what society is going to have role models being just music icons, all right? Or cultural icons. Icons are really music icons, music celebrities. You cannot grow your country by that, right? And you're not going to earn the respect of the world by just having music icons as, or celebrities, music celebrities as your icons, as your role models, right? We have to rethink our position. And people are telling me about the fact that, yes, we're known for dance hall, that the world knows dance hall and the world respects dance hall. The world does not respect dance hall, right? They might have this sort of feel-goodism, as I'm saying. It generates this feel-goodism, and you might rock to it for a while. But after that is finished, right? And you enter into an argument with them, they're going to tell you how you lack development, how you lack an education, and all of those things will come from their mouths. So don't be fooled when people are entertaining you that Jamaica, man, and they love Jamaica to the world, and they love your music, and they love your athletes. Don't be fooled by these people, because behind the scenes, people tend to have this hypocritical disposition where they're going to make other snide remarks, snide comments about the island. So we ought not to find ourselves being so much caught up with this sort of superficial development where we think, and superficial recognition, because that is what we yearn for. We like to be recognized on the world stage, but we like to be recognized for negative qualities, not things that are positive, such like, education, right? And just being known as a civilized nation, right? Because definitely the dancehall music does not help us with civility and respect. It doesn't. The dancehall music does not promote civility and respect. May I say that again? The dancehall music in Jamaica does not promote civility and respect, right? And that is something that we have to become aware of. The dancehall music lacks, of course, the refinement, the finesse, right? It also lacks, I have here a positive message. We do not have positive message or messages, right, in the dancehall music to help our young people to catch a vision for where Jamaica ought to be. the authenticity is not there also. All right, it is just this made up rough and coarse manner of behavior. And many times these dance hall lyricists or the entertainers, these dance hall entertainers, are not what they portray themselves to be, right? It's a made up image. And then our young people imitate that behavior, and hence we have a very violent and disorderly society. We've got to come to grips with these realities, right? Remember, we were known to be people who had wits in our music, right? And who could use words creatively. Yes, they might be using words creatively in the dancehall music, but it's not words that are going to elevate and refine the culture. The culture is known right now to be a disorderly, right? And very, very uncivilized culture. It's not a culture that is particularly known for its education and refinement. Now, we have number 3 here on my top 3. I have lawlessness. Lawlessness. We do not like laws, right? We like to just live in this sort of do it as you please, do it as you go. And no society can grow with that sort of ideology, with that sort of behavior, right? It's a negative type of behavior. Jamaicans loathe order, right? Nothing should be in order, right? We cannot live like that. And that is what you call freedom down there, but that's not freedom, right? There's a word for it, but I'm not also remembering it now. There's a word for when you just want to do as you like, right? And that is not something we want. So Jamaicans loathe order and discipline, all right? Chaos reigns supreme. We just love to have that chaos because chaos is how the Caribbean in general operates. But I think that Jamaicans have a special love for chaos, and we used to be orderly back in the 50s and 60s. But it seems to me as we got into the 70s, the 80s, and particularly after, yes, the civil or the near civil war in 1970s, this level of social disorder in Jamaica has never been upended. It has never been eradicated. We've got to go back to the time when we were a civilized society where we had law and order, right? We are law-abiding people because the laws were enforced, right? People, you have to understand that it's not because you go to other countries and you see their law and order. It's because the people are the laws are enforced. The people understand that if they do not obey the laws, then consequences will occur. It's not because they're more law-abiding than Jamaicans, but in Jamaica, the laws are not enforced. They do not have any teeth. And so we have to apply teeth, right? Sharp teeth to our laws that our citizens can understand. Just like you would not go in front of a pit bull, right? Because, you know, a pit bull is fierce. And when they apply their teeth, right, to your bones, you know what's going to happen. They're going to pulverize your bones. So right now, we need some very, very punitive laws in Jamaica to let our criminals and other people understand that we ought to be a law-abiding country. Now, number 4, lawlessness breeds immorality, right? We do not believe in moral absolutes anymore. We think absolutes, not absolutes. Moral absolutes, right? Where that word came from. We do not believe in moral absolutes anymore, right? We need to understand that what is right or what is wrong, right? We can't say that what something is right here and something is wrong. And that is what I'm finding in Jamaica, particularly among our so-called academics and elites. Our academics like to believe that they're so intellectual, they intellectualize everything. And you talk about the dancehall music, for example, they do know in their hearts of heart, that the dancehall music is a negative artifact. It is a negative cultural symbol. They do understand that, but they want to sell their books and they want to intellectualize. And because of that, we have the culture that is there, a social decadent culture that if we do not come to grips with the reality, we are just going to be going down the road of Haiti. I mean, we're already going down that route. I think that it's just when we will arrive there, something that you have to understand. You know, people will talk about, for example, dance hall music, and they look at the dancehall queen. And this, you know, even though she is a symbol of the objectification of women, they will say, well, you know, it's empowering for her. What sort of objectification of women can be empowering? It can't be both. Just like we can't live in a lawless society thinking that it's freedom and want to have, you know, zero crime or want to have a reduced number of crime and violence, right? Well, not a reduced number, but a reduced amount. I was thinking about something else. A reduced amount of crime and violence. We can't have that. The two cannot cohere, right? It's either we're going to have a lawless society and then it's going to be packed with crime and violence. So we have, of course, lawlessness breeds morality, corruption, criminality, and every vice that one can imagine. So when you have a lawless society, drugs is going to run the show. And that's why we can't get a grip of what is happening with the trafficking of drugs and arms and peoples, right, across our border because our society is lawless, right? We need to get back to a society that maintains law and order, right? Very important for us to understand. Now, number 5, crime is an industry. And I've been seeing it on the show for some times, that crime is an industry. It's a corporation, a large corporation also. It's not something that is just controlled by some uneducated, uncivilized man that is in the ghetto, right? That is what the ideology, that is the message that the Prime Minister Andrew holds us and the intellectuals like to send us a lot of times. Not all the intellectuals, because you have some of the intellectuals who know that the crime situation in Jamaica, the criminal elements emerge from above. It comes from above, right? The highest, but you know, they're afraid of calling out names, right? And calling out some of the firms that are connected with these sort of criminal elements. So the crime is profitable, right? Contrary to popular belief, right, or protestations, right? We have that crime emanates from the top, right? It emanates from the top. Remember, we said that Jamaica started out as a criminal enterprise, right? That is how the British started out Jamaica, as criminals. And they got a lot of money from that criminal enterprise, criminal corporation, whatever you want to call it. As a result, our political economic leaders or political economic leaders, right? Means that our political and economic leaders do not have the moral gumption and fortitude to take this monster as it would unmask some of the most honored and prestigious people or firms or corporations within our society. If they should get rid of this crime and violence, wow, all of a sudden our elites would be impoverished. Or lots of them would definitely not be earning the amount of money that they are earning right now. All right. Remember now that during the Civil War in the United States and even slavery, as it were in other countries, including Jamaica, after independence, right, or emancipation, whatever you want to call it, these so-called elites became poor. Some of them became poor, actually became poor. And that is why they had to be compensated, particularly in England. These families were compensated, even though some of them were rich. But you must understand that they have different levels of wealth, even within among the elites, right? Some are millionaires, some are billionaires, etc., etc., etc. I think you got the point. Now, number 6. Well, the sixth problem that I have itemized here is we tend to have a know-it-all mentality, right? Everybody knows it all, which nurtures our super ego, because all Jamaicans have that sort of super ego. This obnoxious disposition is notable in all echelons, from the top to the bottom of our society, the rich and the poor, the educated and the uneducated. It is common to hear academics postulating that they are the smartest scholar in the room, right? And when they go abroad, they behave the same way. So you go to the United States, and our Jamaican intellectuals tend to believe that they are the top and that they're smarter than the other person in the classroom or in the office, right? Yes, tend to have that sort of super ego where we think that we know it all and our way is the best way. And we often are not able to come to a consensus as a result of that. Because you know everything, then we can't look carefully at the problem because the other person knows it better and the other person is able to express it better. And the other person, it has a more nuanced approach to solving the problem. And we cannot sit down and say, this is a problem and agree upon solutions for tackling the problem. So we are this fractious, divided society, right? Where consensus is never going to be achieved. And if we cannot have consensus, then we can't have a nation state, we can't have nationhood, we can't forge, right, a functioning nation. And that is what we have there. We have tribes in Jamaica, tribes. And these tribes are all contending to showcase their brilliance and their economic prosperity, as it were. That's what we have in Jamaica, right? It's not a real country, as it were. It's not. I think we have believed that it has been, and that's why we're having all of the tensions that are still there. We're still functioning on the plantation. We're living, we have that plantation model of development, which is not working. Because I think we knew from 1834, when slavery was abolished, that the plantation model doesn't work and that it's going to increase tensions among different classes in Jamaica. And we have just slightly relaxed it here and there, but the plantation model in Jamaica is still intact and is something that we have to come to grips with, right? We must understand that that is so. And I think even those persons who are talking about against rather slavery, and they know so much about slavery, are not able to make that connection to see that we need a society in which we get rid of, we eradicate forever the plantation model of development, because it only works for the rich, for the wealthy, and a few of those who might not be wealthy. And that's why they tell you, but look at that person over there. He came from the lower class and look at how he has arrived, right? Because yes, with some relaxation, it does allow one or two people, very few, to be able to come out of their poverty, but it's not the rule, it's more of an exception, right? It's an exception to the rule, right? Because that is not going to be key to development, right? So the IMF and the World Bank and the Caribbean Development Bank, all of these are symbols of plantation, of the plantation model of development. It's not going to happen for the majority of people. Number 7, Jamaicans have become an extremely materialistic society, right? Where money runs the show, right? Relationships, that human relationships, are generally built on material possessions. That's is not built. It should not be built on that, but that is in Jamaica, in the eyes of Jamaica, that is what they want. All right, so they want their relationships to be built on material possessions and educational attainment instead of on grounded moral principles. So we don't no longer believe in developing relationships based on human understanding and awareness and sympathy and empathy. And on the moral principles, it should be built on money and your educational attainments. That is what we have built. So even if you're friendly with someone and that person has lost something, has lost a job, lost some money or whatever, we tend to move away from that person because we think that that person doesn't have the means or the wherewithal to function within our, prosperous circle, right? Within that group where we think that we are so prosperous, right? Until disaster comes our way, then we will understand what relationships, what real human relationships are all about. Now, let's go now to number 8. We are on the 8th problem. Basic common courtesies and a lack of basic respect for each other, right? We don't have the common courtesies that we should have, at least anymore. And we're speaking on the phone with people sometimes, and they lack the common phone etiquette, right? To how to speak on the phone. This rough way, this coarse way of speaking sometimes is a bit bothersome, right? And should be of much consternation for those of us who understand what civility, right, and decency is all about. We must develop the skill of listening respectfully and attentively to each other, right? We do not like to listen to each other. We just want to air our points of views, because we are the know-it-all, right? And I want to be on the platform. I want to be on the stage. I want to be seen. And if I am going to be seen, I have to suppress you to get where I need to go, right? And to have the audience listen to what I have to say to them. Discussions are often shouting matches, right? We tend to like to shout at each other, in which each person is demanding, not commanding, respect. And respect can only be commanded, can't be demanded. When you are demanding respect, that's not real respect. And that is why the slaves rose up against their slave masters, because the slave masters were demanding respect and not commanding their respect. Remember that respect begets respect. And if you do not respect or show respect to the other person, that person also is not going to show any respect to you. So we don't command respect. And that is what we want to demand the respect. And because we want to demand the respect, and persons sometimes do not show us that respect, then we tend to kill them, right? We have this high homicide rate and also the femicide rate also. I was very alarmed that Jamaica has this very high, we perhaps are the number 3 in the world, or, I don't know, number 4 in terms of femicide, right? So all the sides, and I'm not sure where we are in terms of infanticide. All of these sides, the homicides and the femicide and the infanticide, we are right up there, perhaps in the top 5 in the world, right? How have we gotten here? And you'll ask that question, but we've got here because all of these problems have never been dealt with, have never been confronted. And that is why we've got here. It's not that we just got here. Boom. No, it doesn't happen like that. We have been nurturing these very negative attributes all over the years. And as a result of that, we have gotten we have gotten where we are right now. So we like to declare ourselves as the superior Joe or Jill in the room. So we want to demand respect, right? Respect me for my degrees. Respect me for my wealth. Respect me for the house that I live in. Respect me for the car that I drive. Respect me for the associates and the colleagues with whom I speak, right? And you want to see sometimes Jamaicans worshiping people who are just ordinary people. Sometimes I can't understand for the life of me why sometimes we, want to pay homage to people, particularly some foreigners. I don't understand. I think that we also have that inferiority complex, right? And sometimes I do wonder about the inferiority complex in light of what is happening with the IMF and other international negotiations done by our politicians. Oftentimes, it's always in the interest of the foreigner, right? Jamaicans never win. It's almost like when they go into the negotiation room, they just, melt in front of these foreigners. What's going on with that psyche, right? Why don't we rise up and be a Marcus Garvey and have no, we should not be respecter of persons. We should respect and show respect to people, but we ought not to be respecter of none. We ought not to be respecter of any, I should say, right? We ought not to respect anyone because of their material possessions, because of their education, but we should respect them because of their moral compass, right? That is what we should respect them for, not for what they have. Now, number 9, I have here that we have poorly trained and bookishly, that's my word, bookishly educated and visionless leaders, right? Our leaders are not properly trained. And I think that we might have to have or develop a school for training our politicians to speak and just to portray that level of emotional intelligence, right? And to have some understanding of nationhood, what it means to live in a nation, to have an understanding of civility, right? We need all of that. We need to train our leaders. Our leaders are not necessarily, they're poorly trained in my assessment of them. Bookishly educated, what do I mean by that? That they just run the economy or, operate in the political realm based on what they've read from a book. And that cannot be. Bookish, a book is there as a guide, but it cannot necessarily be that which helps us to run. It's all, run the show, lead the people. We've got to be able to look at the reality and try to use our brain along with the wisdom that comes from on high to be able to tackle the problem that confront us. It can't just be what you have learned from this theorist or from this academic book, because it's not going to work. And that has always been what is happening in Jamaica. We're like some of the doctors now, the medical doctors, who just stick to a medical book, right? And they're not looking at the uniqueness of that human body that they are making some diagnosis for, right? So we have to be, our leaders need to be a little bit more flexible when it comes on to implementing policies and to look at the reality on the ground to be able to find possible or to come up with possible solutions. Visionless. Give us vision lest we perish, right? And we are perishing because we have visionless leaders, right? They have absolutely no vision in terms of where do we want to go from 5 years from here, 10 years from here, right? There's no vision. It's just winning elections and people, that's what it's all about, right? Vision in Jamaica in terms of our leaders are just about winning elections, winning, getting votes for the JLP and the PNP. And after that, yeah, whatever, right? You don't care about development of the island. Because I think that Jamaica has an absentee plantation-like model. It's still there. It has not been overthrown. It has not been upended, right? So our elites can travel to Miami, and some of them have homes there and in other parts of the world, and they don't care about developing the country because Jamaica still is not a settler nation. It's not a nation that was built for settlers, for people who are desirous of living there. So they're going to develop the infrastructure and everything so that they can live comfortably there. That is what it is. And some people do, in terms of a few of the wealthier ones do. But what you have to understand, just like it's happening in Haiti, when the masses are looking at you and they see that you are comfortably living in your, la la land, right? Then they are going to eventually overthrow you. Remember what happened in revolutionary France, right? So don't think that those of you who are living in gated communities, right, that you are safe. The king, I'm sure, and the queen of France during the French Revolution thought that they were safe, right, in their palaces, right, in their palace from the right revolutionary forces, right, and the revolutionary forces did get them, right, and you know what happened to them, right? So never think that you're safe because you're living in some big mansions and you have gated communities, because one day, right, one day when the rubber hits the road, right, you might be murdered, right? So we've got to really understand that injustices, if it's too widespread, it's going to eventually overpower the entire system. And I think that there's a strain, the tension is growing every day in modern Jamaica. And very soon, we are going to be ending up in the situation that Haiti has found itself. Now, number 10 is the last one on the list that I have made up. We have a lack of robust institutions. We have to strengthen our institutions, our educational institutions, or our church or religious ecclesiastical institutions, if you will, right? Infrastructure, very weak, right? We need to look at the roads, right? We're just thinking about the highways, and that is not going to be development. Remember, these highways are being made for these investors, right, to transport their goods back and forth to major ports, right? But it's not built for the common man, because the amount of money in tolls that they have to pay is just absurd. Why are we paying all of that? We're laden, we're burdened with all of that, what should I say now? Debt, yet still we have to pay this humongous toll. Don't understand. Why isn't it okay, I think it should be a choice between, do you want to accumulate debt or just pay the tolls? I don't know, but I think that we need to come to an agreement. I don't know what's happening with the tolls, but the tolls are just too exorbitant, right? We need to lower the tolls. $100 back and forth, you're still going to make a lot of money, right? Because people are, if you have mass people using the roads, which they will if you charge 100 Jamaican dollars, yeah, I think that people will be able to do that, right? You have much more people using the roads, and then yeah, then you generate a lot of money. So I think the Jamaican authorities, along with their foreign investors, need to think more broadly. So we have weak infrastructure and amenities, basic amenities. What about the water? Why are we in the 2024 grappling with problems of a lack of water or insufficient water when we are known to be the land of wood and water? It doesn't make any sense. And every time we think, about, development, we just look in terms of just the people are not productive, but we have never asked ourselves the question, why are the people not productive, right? How can you be productive if you don't have water? People want to bathe. What about women who are having their monthly period, or women with babies who are nursing babies? They need water. They need a precious commodity, and it can be solved. Why have we not built more dams in Kingston and around the country? Why are we investing so much in roads, in these highways? Why not fix up the local roads and build more dams? Because the development is not for the people, obviously, right? You've got to build more dams, more water dams. We need those dams right now. And those dams should be built in less than a year. Doesn't take a long time. Just, allocate the money, allocate the funds for those dams to be built. And people in Jamaica, you need now to stop this entertainment. So the money that should be used for the festivals that you celebrate every year, and the independence and emancipation, whatever you call these things, right? Just say that that money will be diverted to building some dams, right? Because we need to sacrifice now, because that is for the common good, and that's decency. You can't have a country, and even tourists go to Jamaica a lot of times and they talk about the water pressure being very low. They can hardly have a shower because the pressure is so low. And this is 2024, and you're talking about modern Jamaica, and Jamaica going to be a logistic hub and all of the nonsense that you hear them talking down there, right? Going to be a logistic hub for what? For undeveloped and uncivilized behavior. And, I don't know. So if we have these basic amenities and infrastructure, right, and we have robust institutions, then it's going to lead to a safe, productive, civilized, and modern society, right? We need that. It's now time for us to get that. Jamaicans need to have that society that they can trust, right? They can trust. I saw, I did not pull it up, but let me see if I can pull it up quickly. Maybe I'm not going to be able to find it right now, but there's an article that came from the letter to the editor to the letter of the day. I might not be able to pull that thing up right now. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I could. Could you give me a second? Yeah, but there was an article yesterday in the Jamaica Gleaner that talked about, highlighted, eloquently our problems, or some of our problems, because we have, an endless, um, well, uh, we just have problems that I don't know if we can even itemize them, because there's so many that they're innumerable, right? That we are going to, I don't know how we are going to come out of our situation now. I don't know, really, if we do not grapple with the problem of crime and violence and the lawlessness that appears in Jamaica right now, that is happening there, that is evident there. I think that we are not yet, I have it here, we're not going to be able to solve it in the next 2 to 3 years. And we're just going to head down the road. We're already down the road, where Haiti is at right now. We are almost there. I don't know if we can take a U-turn. All right, that is for you to answer. The editor here said the letter of the day: break the cycle of mayhem and disorder. Let me see if I can share this, and I'm ending the video right here, because this was a very important letter that was written to the editor of the Jamaican newspaper, Jamaica Gleaner. Could I close this here? It's always these advertisements. It doesn't seem like I can. Okay, let me see if I can close it here quickly. Right. So that's the letter of the day. Break the cycle of mayhem and disorder. She says here, the editor, Madame, disorder, mayhem, violence, corruption, and falsehood reign in this nation. This is a culture created by greed and dishonesty, governed from the top to the bottom in this nation. So it's from the top. It's not coming from the bottom, as they like to suggest. There is lawlessness on the roads, in communities, in parliament, in homes, and in families. The overwhelming sense that disorder is the prevailing ethos in Jamaica darkens the senses. Woe, woe to us as a people. And she's right. She'll be woe. If we are to survive as a nation that is respected, because we're not respected, we must begin to clean up from the top to the bottom. Clean up the parliament, the judiciary, leaders in public sector, the media, and the transportation system. The stench and smoke from Riverton that choked us is symptomatic of the stench that is stifling our moral sensibilities in this nation. Murder is rife in families for dead left, for turf. Murder rules the scammers. In such a small country, no day goes by without a report of murders. That is true. No day goes by without some horrific murder being committed on that very tiny island. No matter that, on the macroeconomic scale, we are said to be improving. It does not reflect in our culture in a sense of security, in a sense of peace, because we're heading to that materialistic realm where the wealth is just for a few and not for the masses. Nothing more stands as a reflection of what this country has become than the mayhem on the roads created by taxi drivers and other reckless motorists who blatantly break the road's code, drive through red lights, cut before cars waiting in lines, drive over sidewalks, and break speed limits. All of this with no system in place because we love the lawlessness to hold them accountable as they randomly and without impunity do as they please. Because that is freedom in the eyes of Jamaicans. To be someone who obeys the laws, who is considerate of other persons, who is kind and thoughtful, who values truth and order, who cares for family and loved ones, who wants to earn an honest living and have pride in being accountable and transparent in your dealing with others is no longer valued in this nation because our leaders don't value it because they themselves are not clean, they're not productive, they're not accountable, they're not transparent, and the list goes on. It is the person who can own the biggest home, who drives the latest car, flashes the latest jewelry, wears the most fashionable clothes, parties in the clubs, drinks the most expensive alcoholic beverages, and brags about their sexual exploits, and who has many hits on their social media profile. This, it seems, is the aim of the in crowd, the quote unquote in crowd. Oh, this was written by Esther Tyson. Right, I know her very well. Well, know her in terms of know her articles. I do not know her personally, but she writes a lot for the Jamaican, and when she speaks, she has a lot of, things to say. And I think she is one of the very few people who bring to the fore our problems as they are, raw as they are, because our problems are really entrenched and very intractable. There are some very, very, our social ills are just something that will make you want to vomit. It's not really pretty, right? It's not really hideous. Some hideous social ills that we have in Jamaica, right? It's almost like going to the hospital and you see all of that, all those diseases and the cancer and the, wow, you know, I want to run. Now, is it possible to have our leaders set the example for people on how to be selfless, accountable in our transactions, courteous in interactions, even in the face of disagreements, to be honest in our dealings and not self-serving? Is it possible that our leaders could pride themselves in showing the strength of character to go against the tide of immorality and corruption that characterizes this nation? If the head of the stream is dirty, how can the river be clean? Right? Very well said. Very well articulated, Esther Tyson. Thank you so much for joining. And I hope that you will like and you will share and you will subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you in another video. All the best to you. Happy Sunday. Ciao.